Welcome to day number 6 of Quarantine Fit. Today is all about recovery, and as you can see here, I have my little recovery man ready to go. Superficial back line. So what I am talking about today is going to really impact and open up your movement. The superficial back line is a concept that comes from a methodology called, or a book called Anatomy Trains. And basically what we're looking at is how the body is connected as a whole. When we first discovered physiology and anatomy, we were looking at individual muscles. It turns out that these muscles are connected via a network of soft connective tissue called fascia. So what I do in one part of my body is going to impact another part of my body. And here's a really cool way to understand this. And I'm going to use the toe touch as an example, because the toe touch is going to start to elongate and stretch this entire superficial back line. It turns out that these line up perfectly with the practice of yoga, which has been around for thousands of years. So even though they weren't dissecting bodies and coming up with what we would consider anatomy and physiology, they were using the same process through trial and error and observation. So I'm coming down here and I feel some tension in my calves, my hamstrings, a little bit of my upper back, mostly calves and hamstrings. My superficial back line starts at the bottom of my feet, it wraps around, it goes up into my calf, it goes into my hamstring, connects through here to my lower base of my spine, through my spine extensors, and it comes all the way up through my back, so ends right up here, somewhere in my head, up in my cranium. Here's the cool part, if I change any of that superficial back line, the rest of it is going to relax. And here's a really cool trick you can test for yourself. You're going to use some sort of a soft tissue ball. And again, you're going to take a baseline. So when I take a baseline, I go heels and toes together. I'm going to slide my hands down and I'm going to pause when I start to feel a stretch. I'm not trying to stretch. I'm stopping when I start to feel tension. So if you look, that's right there. I'm going to give you something to measure this against. So right at the point of my shin, about the top of this yoga block. Now, I'm going to change one part of this superficial back line by just simply rolling out the base of my feet. And if this theory is correct and I relieve tension out of my feet, then my hamstrings and my calves will also start to relax. So I'm going to go quickly as I'm on camera here. We don't need to spend 2 or 3 minutes doing this, but I'm going to go there, go here. You will find really bad trigger points in the bottom of your feet if you've ever had plantar fasciitis. Or if you do right now, you're going to have to go really, really easy on this. But I release tension out of the balls of my feet. I find a really good trigger point. I can breathe on it and sit there for a minute or so until that tension dissipates and I feel an appreciable difference. Let's check my baseline again. So last time my toe touch was about here, not forcing it and trying to stretch. I take tension out of my feet, and now I'm dropping further already. So I gained 1 to 2 inches just by releasing tension out of the bottom of my feet. Now I'm going to get even more tension off the table. I'm going to go to where my superficial back line ends, the base of my skull, and I'm going to start rolling around these 2 bony points in the bottom of your skull. Again, I'm just looking for trigger points in really dense areas of tension. And I'm going to relax down. When I'm doing the soft tissue work, it's really good times to practice diaphragmatic breathing. What that's going to look like is my chest stays in place. I breathe into my hips as I bring my air down into the deepest part of my lowest lungs. I'm going to expand my stomach and my lower back. I'm trying to inflate, and that takes even more tension off. Okay. Again, going a little quickly to demonstrate, you can spend more time. You're going to find some really gnarly trigger points the first times you're doing this. It takes a few weeks to start practicing regularly to really open things up. Well, let's check my baseline again. So when I started, I was here before I took tension out of my feet. When I took tension out of my feet, I was about here. And now I get a little bit extra just by relieving those 2 points. Now I'm still feeling it primarily in my calves. I got a little bit of hamstring stretch here. Most of it's down in my calves. So that's where you're gonna go and start to really work on the areas that you feel the tightest. Generally, there's gonna be a spot right up here, right below the knee, and then one lower, down here, towards where the larger calf muscles are connecting. Find those biggest trigger points. You're really trying to find the 1 or 2 biggest ones for each area of your body. Since today's a recovery day, you can spend a little bit more time releasing tension. If you find you have really tight calves, a real good trick is that as you're using the ball and rolling them out, you can use like a bag of dog food or cat food or a sandbag, something to apply a little bit more weight. You can load up the duffel bag, and that'll help to release that tension out of those tissues. Now, when I peg my calf there, I'm going to increase the stretch by coming forward, so now I'm increasing the stretch on my hamstring. Now that whole fascial line's under more stretch. I can take my foot, I can start working it in and out, up and down. I can start playing with my ankle mobility, and I'm going to increase the effect through the calf. Let's check one more time. Now I've released 3 areas. There's my baseline, heels and toes together. Exhaling and relaxing, and now I'm down towards my toes. Right there. If I keep repeating this process, I'm going to get lower and lower. This is one thing we're going to check. The next ability I'm going to check is what's called T-spine rotations, my ability to rotate my upper body. I don't want to be rotating from my lower back. That's the reason golfers and other athletes that rely on twisting motions, like baseball players, get a lot of lower back problems, is if I'm low, I don't want to be rotating my lumbar spine, which is this lowest spine. I want to be rotating my spine from about here to here. So now I'm going to check that ability. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my cage right here. You can use a wall. And I'm going to give myself a little bit of support with a couple cushions or yoga blocks. And I'm going to show you how we just start to advance using this concept of a superficial backline of these anatomical fascial lines. I'm going to pin my lower back against my wall. In my case, my cage. You can use any sort of wall or anything that's vertical. This is just to make sure my hips are on top of each other. I'm going to give my leg some support, so I'm going to brace this right here. I'll change based on the height that I need, but I want to be able to relax this leg fully. I'm going to support my head, and now I'm just going to do a sweep to start opening up my T-spine. So I'm going to breathe, exhale. My lower back's not going anywhere. I'm getting all this good rotation from my upper body. I'm working this right shoulder and hand towards the ground. Exhale. Every time I exhale, I can rotate a little bit more. I can kind of push and pull my way into it. And I'm paying attention to where I feel restriction. Just like I was doing on my toe touch, now I'm feeling some restriction right here, my lower back. This is an area called the QL. This is a great area to address with something like the size of a softball, maybe a little bit smaller to start. I can come here, get that. I never want to roll out a bone, so this is safely below my ribs. It's off to the side of my spine. It's above my hips. I don't want to be straight up and down. I want to be at about a 45-degree angle. So I start angling and trying to come at those spine extensors from the side right there. Diaphragmatically breathe through my stomach. That's where I feel the most tension. Release that tension. The other area I felt was on the opposite side, up here towards behind my shoulder blade. So I'm going to sink that ball in right there. That's pretty tight. That's pretty gross. I'll have to address this after I shoot this video. Diaphragmatically breathing, letting that tension ease its way out. I'm not going to be able to get all of it. I'm just trying to create an appreciable difference where things start to relax. And right now, all that area is pretty tight. Now let's see if I work those spots, if that improved what I was going after. So I'm back here, supporting the head, both hips up against the wall. Knees supported by some sort of a cushion. I'm going to do that wiper motion again. I'm going to breathe. As I exhale, I'm going to rotate. And sure enough, now this arm starting to make contact more with the ground. If I had a training partner here, we could push and pull and I could get even deeper. But I'm going to do that on both sides, and that's going to be my recovery work today. So to recap, I'm doing that standing toe touch to get my baseline, and then I'm releasing those trigger points I discussed. We're trying to increase our toe touch range of motion, and then we're trying to increase our T-spine rotation. Just play around with these, ease into the stretch. If it's too easy, let me know. All of these are tailored based on the individual's level. So for example, if that rotation is just way too easy, we can increase the difficulty by increasing the stretch on different parts of that same fascial line. So this is my basic position here. Now what I can do is, I can start to actively straighten this working side, and already I feel much more of a stretch throughout my hamstring, in my calf, and up here in my glutes and my hips. I can do the same movement now. I lost a little range of motion in my shoulders because my hip, which is connected to the opposite shoulder by a different fascial line, is being challenged. You really have to relax your body with your breathing. It's our biggest control over our nervous system. Our nervous system has two states: sympathetic, which is the proclaimed fight or freeze response, and parasympathetic, which is rest and digest. My breath is my biggest hack, if you want to think of it that way, or my greatest control over my nervous system. So breathing deeply is telling my nervous system to stay in that parasympathetic state, and it's going to let my body start to loosen up. Here's a little fact that you can throw at people, which is very interesting. If somebody has no structural damage, meaning that their joints and they have like no serious breaks, no crazy scar tissue throughout their limbs, if they're under anesthesia and the central nervous system is completely wiped out, most people could had their legs put into a full splits because the nervous system is no longer telling that musculature to have tension in it. So a much or lesser degree, obviously we're not going to put ourselves under anesthesia, but my breathing can control my nervous system, can calm everything down, and it's going to start to ease and grant me more range of motion. That's why all movement, yoga, powerlifting, any sort of movement is going to start with breathing first and foremost, because my breathing is going to be how I control my body tension. I hope that all makes sense. Post your questions, comments down below. If there was an area that you feel tight, make sure to ask. One thing I didn't really touch on yet, but I'll clarify real fast. I don't want any sort of shooting sensations. When I'm doing my soft tissue work and I'm rolling out calves, hamstrings, it doesn't matter, any part of my body, I never want to feel like a nerve sensation, no electrical sensation shooting through my body. This should be localized. It might be sore. As I'm rolling out my calf, I feel a little tension, some soreness, possibly some sort of like a little bit of a cramp sensation, but those can be rolled out and addressed with these methods. If there's that nerve signaling sensation like you feel classically if you have a herniated disc in your lower back and it's shooting down your leg, these are not the ways to approach that. That's going to require a different intervention from a physical therapist, and we'll talk about that at a different time. So, hope that makes sense. Go make a great day. We'll have some nutrition videos coming out for the challenge, and I'll talk to you soon. Peace.